Hi, my name is Emily, and today I'm going to be discussing why it's important to know two languages within your lifetime. So, although I don't have an audience here, I would love to ask how many people do you think are fluent in more than one language? More than two languages? Okay, well, according to the Pew Research Center, only 20% of the students in the United States are learning two languages. Whereas in the European median for students learning two languages is 92%. That is 72% more than the United States. The main points that I'll be talking about today not only discuss the better job opportunities if you learn two languages, but also the better brain activity that you'll have, as well as the better travel experiences you will have as well if you learn more than one language. And this topic and learning more than one language is not only important for all the United States, but it's especially important for every student in college as well as just students in general. Renee Latimer, a professor at Auburn, Roll Tide, says that business skills and foreign language skills together make an employee much more valuable in the marketplace. As all of us continue our journey in college, it is more important than ever to stand out from others in the workforce. Being able to speak another language helps immensely when looking for a job. And since I have spoken a foreign language, Spanish, for 6 years now, I've been shown numerous times the importance of knowing another language. Whether it be to appreciate a different culture, being able to create more connections within people that speak the language that you're learning, and then also I learned how important it is for jobs within people that I've spoke to, and also just with research that we've learned in class. So the first point I'd like to talk about is how important it is to learn a new language for travel reasons. So the first point I'd like to bring up about this is that it helps with decision making within your travel experience. Rochelle Spazuki, an author for Travel and Leisure, wrote that researchers at the University of Chicago found that they were able to think more rationally and with less bias when we use bilingualism or use a different language while we are in a different country and making options. 2 years ago, I did go to France, and while I was there, it was such a hard challenge to order at restaurants and try and figure out what you're trying to eat, as well as what you're trying to buy in gift shops and prices, and also just navigate around the different countries and cities of France. And a lot of people in these other countries do prefer using their first language, just as we do in the United States. Think about it. When we meet someone that doesn't speak the same language as us, we usually tend to use English as our first language. So it's the same way with people from other countries. They do like to use their first language that they learned because it's just way easier for them. And it's also a lot more respectful if people who are traveling use the language of the country that you're visiting. The key to communication overseas and in other countries is to either be fluent or have an understanding of the language. It shows respect to these people, and it also makes it easier to enjoy the culture and not focus so harshly on what you're trying to do, where you're trying to go, or what you're trying to buy. Not only does your decision-making skills improve, but your attention improves as well. This point could also be used for brain activity and the improvement of cognitive abilities, but I like to put it for travel because having a better attention span helps you focus more on the culture and the traditions that you're learning versus just focusing so much on what you don't know there. So in 2016, the University of Edinburgh did a study evaluating 33 students ages 18 to 78 who participated in a week-long Scottish Gaelic course. So for these people, they learned for a week a new language. And the professors at the university found that many of the participants had an increased attention span, which shows that attention does improve because not only are you learning a new language, but you're having more abilities to focus in on two different languages, as well as the hardships of learning a new language, because we have to admit it is a little hard to learn a new language. But this also shows for an easier time speaking to those in a different country. And during my 6 years of learning Spanish, I've found that over those past 6 years, it has become so much easier to understand and pay attention while you're listening to people who are speaking in Spanish, what they're saying after a couple years of learning, even after a couple months, because you know more words and you know more phrases, and you're just able to understand more of what people are saying and really be able to connect and just make more connections with people. So the last point obviously was be cultural appreciation that you'll have for learning a new language while visiting. And I would like to say it is almost impossible to learn a new language without also learning the cultural background that goes with that language. Learning a new language is so empowering for a person, and it enables a person to have a greater opportunity and to appreciate and understand a culture as well as societal norms as well as traditions of a certain place and the language and its origin. So not only does this help with traveling to other countries, but it also helps the United States as well in places where we see that there's a lot of people from a different country, such as in Miami or Texas, where there's a lot of native Spanish speakers, or New York, where there's a plethora of different speakers, as well as California. And you can even say Louisiana, since there is a lot of different French speakers down there. And that sums it up for why it's better to learn a new language because of travel reasons. But the next reason I'd like to bring up is learning a new language improves memory and brain activity. So bilingual students have been shown to do better on standardized testing in schools. Wade Thomas and Virginia Collier, two professors at George Mason University, who are also husband and wife, did a study on 6 different states, as well as students within 37 districts within those states, and they have found that students that are bilingual or are proficient in more than one language did better on standardized testing, and they also seemed happier in schools. These students also were shown to have a better attendance rates as well as less behavioral problems in these schools, and being proficient in more than one language allows for more connections to be made cognitively with the languages understood. So not only are you doing better in school because you're able to learn more and know more languages, but also you're doing better behavior-wise as well as with attendance, and you're just overall becoming a better person. Speaking 2 languages has also been seen to protect against dementia as well as other declines of the brain and brain activity. And research shows that learning a new language can create a new brain structure for people. So what that means is that learning a new language helps your brain adapt to learning both languages as well as understanding both languages, and which creates a new brain structure. And Anya Commence, a writer for NPR, wrote an article, and in this article she discussed a Canadian study that evaluated a group of bilingual and monolingual adults. So just 2 groups of people, one knew more than one language and the other one just knew one language. And in this study, both groups performed about the same, but after looking at these groups' brains, it was shown that the bilingual group, the group that knew 2 languages, had a little bit more damage to their brains, which, although that does sound pretty bad, don't worry, it also just proves that although there was more damage to the bilingual group's brains, it showed that even with that damage, they were able to perform at a higher level and at the same pace as people with no damage to their brains. So, even what seems to be more damage on the actual brains of those who speak more than one languages, the change in brain structure and the ability to adapt to more languages allows for more functioning of the brain in the end. So the last point I'd like to get to is more job opportunities offered for those who speak more than one language. The first point I'd like to bring up is foreign trade. So within our modern society, as we can see, we have so many opportunities for trade and connections with other countries, especially with new technology. And I know we have a lot of business and trade with other countries. And Latimer, the professor from Auburn, Roll Tide again, she wrote that 4 out of 5 new jobs in the United States are created as a result of foreign trade. So not only would it allow someone proficient in 2 languages the opportunity to work overseas, but in the United States as well, within these new jobs that are being created because of foreign trade. So being bilingual also can help put someone ahead in the job market. About a year ago, I spoke with someone who went to my high school and just recently graduated, and she's going to become a doctor. And she came and spoke to our class and told us that with her minoring in Spanish, which she did, she minored in Spanish, she was able to have so many more opportunities for internships, as well as she has so many more opportunities with jobs now in all parts of the United States, and especially parts where Spanish is needed. She also told us that through her internship that she did in Texas, because of her ability to speak Spanish, in her internship in Texas, she made note that every single day that she was working there, she ended up using more Spanish than she did English. So definitely in some places around the United States is a lot easier for these people to speak in their natural language, and that still can be seen around the United States. And not only with jobs too, but also with volunteer opportunities. There's a big company, I guess you could say organization, Doctors Without Borders, that involves doctors going overseas to help students with, help people with their health problems. It just helps them. Doctors Without Borders, Look it up. Anyways, so Doctors Without Borders, if you do want to go to a program like that where you go overseas to help people in need,